This queue is actually called poison queue, and you can actually see them. You can actually see this queue if you write get queue. First, let's go back to my environment. I mentioned that if I kill this service or kill this process, it will restart. I will do the killing part. Yes, I'm sure. It will be gone, but it's also back. Parent service restarted it. And as mentioned, we will not see any poison queue, unfortunately. I tried to get that to work, but I wasn't able to force this thing to work. But I saw them in the production environment before. How long are they there? Until the messages in the queue don't expire. So this can be by default, this is 2 days. If you notice it, you can view the messages, you can export the messages, you can then, let's say, resubmit the message, you can delete the message, you can do whatever you want, or just let them expire. Messages will stay in the poison queue until they expire. You can remove the message, you can resubmit them, but most likely if you resubmit the messages in the poison queue, they will just cause the child service to crash again. So it doesn't usually make a lot of sense. While you still might want to view them to see what's inside of them and maybe try to figure out why they are crashing. But usually in that, if the message is causing service to crash, and this is very rarely, there might be something really wrong with the message. We can actually see this config file that that's written up there in this PDF. It's in here, edge transport. Where is it? Edge transport exe.config. It's an XML file. That's one of the places where configuration for transport service is stored. One of many places, and we will see quite a few places during this presentation. If I can actually show this to you, I will go to one of my production environments. Let's go here. Actually, not here. I will need that one later. This server is running Exchange, so it must have config file. Config file will be stored in bin folder and edge config open. I can use Notepad or whatever, it's just XML file. And this is just one of the storages where quite important information can be stored. Exchange writes to this config file, you can add values to this file or change values. Once transport service is restarted, it will reload this file and use the new values. Exchange might use some values that are not entered here. That means if they're missing in here, Exchange will automatically use default values. If you want to change those values, you might have to edit this file. I will just change the font here. So you might see some other information. One of the most useful things that you can find here are some paths that you might want to change. Let's say Q database path. I will talk about Q database in a couple of slides. Some other values. Usually we can leave these settings alone. We can use default values. If you were looking after some really large environment, you might want to consider changing some of these values. My main point is you just have to be aware that there's another file that you might have to edit to change some settings. And I will refer to this file back later during my presentation. One thing to note here, if you're doing Exchange upgrade, let's say from SP1 to SP2 or from SP2 to SP3, whatever change you made to this file, they will be gone after you update the Exchange services. Because upgrade mostly looks like you first uninstall Exchange, or the setup uninstalls Exchange, removes all the files, and just introduces new files with the default values. So whatever you change in the config files will be gone after you update it. So make a good documentation of your changes, because you will have to redo them once the update is finished. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why Microsoft started putting more and more values into the registry once again. There are other settings and other config files that you might want to edit in for other services, not transport service related. And again, after the update, you would just have to re-enter those values. Registry, compared to registry settings and configuration of Exchange, it stays intact during the update. Just something to note. Okay, let's move on. This is the path where it's stored, similar for Exchange 2015. 13 setting from the file are applied at startup or restart of the service. Here's an example that I was just showing. I was already talking a bit about database and the queues. In previous versions of Exchange, let's say Exchange 2003, Exchange 2000, and Exchange 5.5, the queue files or the queued emails were actually in the form of file. Every mail was a separate file on the hard drive. With Exchange 2007, we have a different form of queue right now. Queuing now, and queue is actually, let's say if I write get queue, we can actually see quite a few emails in the queue, 2 for one domain, 1 for Gmail, 1 for another domain, and so on and so on. And these messages are actually stored in the database. It's not in the mailbox database, but the queue database. And where can we find it? Let's go to transport, program files, Microsoft Exchange, V14 or V15 transports roles, and let's go to data and queue. And here it is. Second. Mail queue. Here it is. Okay, it's ESC database. It has all the properties of ESC database. It's stored, the path is actually defined in that XML file that I was mentioning earlier. And this queue database is also mentioned in this node, queue database. So every mail that arrives to the hub transport server or edge server goes to the queue database, and it's stored there, and it's waiting either for submission, either for delivery, or it's waiting for some server to come up because it's being restarted or whatever. We have some transaction log files. Since this is ESC database, you won't see a lot of transaction log files. You cannot disable circular logging. Circular logging is enabled by default, and it will stay on like that. You can see that this database is about 500 megabytes or half a gig. I didn't see much larger databases. I saw a couple of them that were about 2 gigabytes. It usually shouldn't be too large if your environment is healthy, because the messages will come into the database and it will move out of the database. It's just passing through. Once the mail is gone and once the shadow queue is emptied, there is no point of messages being there, so they're wiped out. The interesting thing about this database is, okay, I actually have the slide on that. Queue database, ESC database applies the same rules as any other ESC database, like mailbox database or Exchange database. It's transactional. You can find it in the path that I mentioned, and you can actually export messages from this queue. This was really good in Exchange 2003 and 2000 because you actually had a file. You can look inside the file. You could just select the files and remove the messages out of the queue. It's a bit harder now because the messages are in the database. Still, you can use the tools or PowerShell command lines like export message to export the actual message out of the database. Part of this is how you can do it. Export message. You define the server, the queue, and the message, and then you say assemble message, and you enter the path where you want to store it and the name of the file. This is very useful, and actually it came handy quite a few times. Let's say I had a problematic server. Messages were queuing up, didn't want to go anywhere, we have no idea why. We didn't have a lot of time because messages were piling up. What we were actually able to do is export all the emails from the queue, get them into the form of EML file. We copied those files to another hub server and place them into the pickup folder. And the other Exchange server just picked them up, put them into its queue, and send them out without problem. Then we had time to work on the problematic server. Actually, there is a pretty good article here that shows all these steps and actually gives you some more automation because it loops through all the queues and exports all the files and places them into a folder that you provide. What I need to show you is pickup and pickup folder. It's in transport roles. It's actually here. Transport roles, I had the queue database in here, and here is the pickup or reply folder. You can put them in either of those two. Any properly configured file that looks like email, that has from address to address, subject, and some body, you put it in pickup folder, it will just pick it up and deliver it. And what if you have a problem with the database itself? Well, if you are certain that you don't need the emails that are stuck in the queue, what you can actually do is delete the queue database. It's quite easy. I can actually show it. I will do this in my lab environment. I will go to the services. I have to actually stop the transport service. Before I do that, I will go to check the queue. It's empty. Transport service. I will stop the service. I will actually move to the database path. Data queue. This is my queue. By default, it's 500 max, empty. I think my services are stopped. I will just rename the queue folder. Actually, it's not stopped yet. Okay, it's still stopping. Once I start the services, it will figure out the database is missing, and it will build a brand new one, clean one actually. Nothing inside. If you had any emails prior to that, inside they're gone. You can still introduce the old database back if you want to, but other than that, those emails are gone. I will just do the try again. Okay, I have renamed the folder. Queue folder is gone. It doesn't exist. I just start the service. I will try to do it like this so you can see this. We'll do it. Yeah, just a second. Yeah. If you dismount it, no. It actually has to be mounted. Sorry? You could take that database to another server, let's say in your lab environment or some other environment where you want to try and salvage those emails. You could mount it. You just replace this production database with the database that's on the other server. Start the service, it will mount, you get the get queue, export message like I showed before, and it will work. And then you can take those EML files that you got and introduce them into the working part of your environment. Okay? Otherwise, as long as it's dismounted, there is nothing you can do. So I get brand new database. And actually, transport service will, if it detects any problems with ESC of this database, it will replace this database by itself. And this is something that is defined in that XML file that can actually be defined. It's not by default because it has default action of removing the database if it has problems. But you can actually say just move it and store it as old or something. And it will, if it detects the problem, it will just move that database away and create new one. You can change these settings or this behavior if you edit the config file that I showed earlier. Okay. If we are trying to troubleshoot Exchange transport service, unfortunately, we'll have to look at some log files. So what are these important log files that you should check? It depends slightly on the role of the server that you are trying to troubleshoot. If this is the edge server or hub server that is picking up emails directly from the internet, one of the first log files that I will look at if I'm troubleshooting some environment is agent log file. You can find them. It's the same for Exchange 2015. I will actually go to the production environment. Let's go here. I will go here on up, transport roles. Agent log. These are the actually daily log files, and they actually can get rotated if they reach the 10 meg file size. We can look into them. What we will see, actually, in my experience, I never found email that didn't touch this log file. It doesn't matter if the email is accepted or rejected. In my experience, any email that touches your Exchange server will be recorded in here with quite a lot of information. There is no subject, there are IP addresses, there are mail from, mail to, if email was accepted or if it was rejected and why it was rejected. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. This is production environment and there's a lot of spam going on. So a lot of emails get rejected with this error. Because it is doing the real-time block list rejecting. It checks if IP is on IP address that of the sending server is on real-time block list. If it is, it rejects it and it records it. Mail from, mail to, IP where it was coming from, and why it was rejected. Another thing that you will notice here is emails that are rejected because the recipient is unknown. So if somebody is trying to send an email to my environment to the email address that does not exist, it will be recorded in here, in the agent log file. What else can I find here? Let's say I will find, let's say PTR. I'm looking for PTR. Is it not here? It should be. Okay. How about, okay, I will go to another environment. I will check here. This is another similar environment. I will go to program files, same path, Microsoft, Exchange, B14, logging. Actually, no, actually I have to go to the transport role first, logs and agent log. I will just pick one log. It's similar here. A lot of emails getting rejected by real-time block list. And I'm looking for, let's say, PTR. And actually, it found one. Let's see, not the right one. Let's see. I should be looking for another string for PRA. PRA not permitted is another common error. When will you see this in your log files? You will see this in your log files if email from email address part does not match with the IP address. So if let's say I'm system administrator from my company, I can actually create a record in DNS. It's called SPF record, and I will tell it for the domain, let's say domain.com, domain can only come from this set of IP addresses. Now, if somebody is sending email from my domain from the IP address that is not on that list, you will see this in your log file. If this is hard to see, I will just go here. This part of the error is this one, sender ID not permitted. I can actually show this to you, how it looks when I'm trying to send an email from the IP address that is not allowed. So how does this record look? This is one of my customers' address. This set for this domain, dars.si. Email can only come from this set of IP addresses. If I try to submit email to them from my home computer that's not part of their network, I will get this. And I should be rejected by now. Wait a couple of seconds. It will set per not permitted. I'm sending from the wrong IP address. Okay, what are other possible things to look for? User unknown, I mentioned user unknown. Sender ID okay, this is another one. Domain that is sending does not exist. I can again show this. Open another one. Hello, mail from. This domain does not exist. Okay. I was a bit fast. It should say domain does not exist, and it will reject it. I know. That's okay. It's still processing. It depends where you press the enter line and you continue to write. It should be okay. Otherwise, I can always do the and try again. I will do that here. Because I actually got too many errors, and I will show where you can set this. Hello, okay, that was already there. It will set the error now. It's okay. It's just really bad telnet terminal. Test. It will say this domain does not exist, and it shouldn't exist, I hope, because I was just making a domain up. Yeah, it actually says. This is what you will see in your log files. So now you know what this means. Let's go for another one. This one is very often per recipient block list or per recipient whitelist. What this means is actually that one of your users in your environment set somebody to block or to accept. This is quite important because sometimes I get a call from a customer, why is this person in our environment not receiving email from XWZ? We check the emails if the email is coming in. We check this in the agent log file. What we will find out that they actually blocked this user and actually she's rejecting the email. So where did the user set this? It's quite easy. I will just, let's say I want to block this one, this user. Junk email, block sender. Actually, I will just go to junk email option, save sender or block sender. If the user is in here under the block sender, this information gets populated into AD, and hub server or edge server can check this. If it's in the block list, it will reject it for me because I put it on the list. For somebody else in my organization, it will accept them because they didn't put them on the blacklist. It's the same thing with the whitelist. Let's say a user gets junk mail, and what happens is, okay, why does this junk mail not end up in, let's say, junk folder? Because it's in the whitelist, and whitelist has higher priority than junk folder. What you can do, remove such users from the whitelist or block list. Let's see. So what to expect from the agent log? Let's say you can find information. Recipient does not exist if you're using RBS, sender ID events, and so on. And again, it's really important log files because all the emails that touch the system, even if it was rejected, got recorded in here. It's really important. You will find them in here. The only thing to remember is you have to check all your servers. If you have 5 edge servers sitting on the internet accepting emails, you have to go and check all the 5 servers or write a script that does that for you. So here are the examples that we just went through. Another log file, but this one is optional because it comes with forefront protection for Exchange. If you are using forefront protection for Exchange, log files that you should be looking is similar to agent log. Actually, I can show it to you. I will just close this one. And this one is in another path. C program files x86, and I go to forefront. Just wait a couple of seconds. I go under data. And FSE agent lock. This one is actually the one I'm looking for. Just pick one. Let's say if user is telling me that he didn't receive an email yesterday, I will choose the log file from yesterday. It should be somewhere around here. Let's say this one, 12. And it's quite similar to agent log file that we just saw. And this is another log file that you should check because it might be your antivirus, like Exchange forefront protection for Exchange, blocking your email or quarantining it or something. It will be written in this log file. But still, if I come to the environment and they say we are missing some emails, first log that I will check is agent log file. Let's go forward. Another log file that you should be familiar with are SMTP receive and SMTP send. But these are not enabled by default like agent log files are if you're using agent filters. Still, you won't see, let's say, subject in this email, in these log files. You will see IP addresses and the first part of the conversation between 2 servers. And when they finish the conversation, these 2 servers, when exchanging email, what you can expect to see is if this was successful, you will see I got the email, thank you, or why it failed. So let's take a look at some examples. Let's see if I have protocol log enabled here. Where can I find this? It's again in program files, Exchange, Microsoft Exchange v14. The only thing I think I don't have is enabled protocol logging. So protocol log, Smtp receive, and SMTP send. depending on what you're looking. If you have problems receiving email, you want to check receive logs. If you have problems sending, you should check the send log part. Either of those two. Right? Okay, let's check them. They are enabled, but I won't see one important thing, so I will just switch to another environment. It's remembered. Log files, protocol log, again receive. I'm interested in the parts where I'm receiving emails. I will just open one file. So I can see this is coming from external email servers into my organization. This is actually email of the connector that I'm using, and I know how to name them. If I forgot how to name them, I could always go and do get receive connector. I got the names external email servers or internal email servers, and I'm actually interested in external. What is coming from the internet? So let's see. Let's try and figure out the first one. So we start receiving email here. When it's a star, it's actually sort of a comment. That's the first line. This means we sent this first line. Actually, I can show this to you. If I do this, telnet smtp.mx25. Okay, just a second. TP. This is the first line, the hello and everything else, and this is the banner. And you can see this, how these two exchange servers or mail servers exchange this. This is the first line. And this character means we send this out. And then we send, let's say, actually this. Okay, let's try another one because this one is really short. There was some problem. Okay, let's try this one. So we sent out this banner. Then we got back hello and the IP address. So if the character is in the other direction, we are receiving. If it's the other direction, we are sending. And then they went back and forth. They said hello, we sent all the commands that we are supporting, right? And they're sending mail from. And then they're and we say, okay, receiving message, and who is this mail to? And we go down, and so on. What actually I need to show you is one complete message, sender okay. It's kind of hard because this is production environment and there is a lot of messages being rejected. So we should be looking for, let's see if I can find it fast. There's another environment that I need to show you. I have this here also on the slides. If you want to see these log files, you have to enable the logging, and then it will show up either in SMTP receive if this is receive connector, or in send if this is send connector. Where can you find it? I showed this to you, and it's the same on new version of Exchange. And actually, this is the complete transaction. So again, the first part, and then we receive the information back. We show them what commands we support, including start SSL. And then we start exchanging mail from. So who is the sender? Who this mail is to? I actually had to remove that information, unfortunately. And actually, this one is failed because recipient is not authorized, and this IP was actually rejected. So this is what you can see more detailed how this conversation goes. This is another example. Why is this one interesting or different? Is because we have another step here, and we are exchanging certificates because SMTP service will try to do SSL handshake, and they will actually try by default to do the SSL and encrypt the communication between them. but anytime that they can. Even if you have self-signed certificates, you don't have to buy them. If you have self-signed certificate, it will try to use the SSL and do the encryption. Why is this useful here? Because you can see actually the serial numbers of the certificates, and this can be useful for troubleshooting. Let's say you figure out you bought the certificate, you don't want to use the self-signed, and you need and you don't know why the wrong certificate is being introduced to the other server, because you can have, let's say, 5 certificates in your environment, and this is how you troubleshoot it. You look at the serial numbers that are sent, and once you figure out which one is being sent, you can either remove it or change the priority on your servers. Okay. What else to look into protocol logs? One of very common error is authentication errors, and you will see them in your protocol logs, the logs that I just showed you. The thing is, why didn't we see any authentication errors? Because we were looking at the external logs or connectors, and there is no authentication there. But internally, let's say you have 2 hub servers, 2 Exchange hub servers, and when they want to talk to each other, they will actually want to authenticate. And if they can't, there is no exchange in the email, and that's where we often see queues being picked up because hub servers can't talk to each other, and mail will just queue there. And when we go and look at the log files, we see that they could not do the authentication. Where's the problem usually? Usually the problem is in how the connectors were set up, either send or receive. Actually, I can show this, how you can reproduce this problem or test this problem. I need to just check one thing here. Let's say I want to send this mail to this server. I am on the edge of the network in DMZ. I need to send this email to the internal network. And in the internal network, this is the server. I will telnet to it. It allowed me to telnet. I will do the hello, like I did for other servers. Mail from. Actually, this one will cause an error. And I will get an error here. It will say you are not authenticated. Because I'm sending, this client was not authenticated, and this is actually recorded in the log file. Why did this happen? Because I'm sending email between 2 internal servers on internal connectors, and the server in the LAN actually expected that I will be authenticating. It was expecting this because I was sending from internal IP address, and that's how the connector was set up. This is very common error that I see with the new installations, because people often misunderstand receive or send connectors. So from the internet, I need to set up my connectors that they accept anonymous connections without authentication. Internally, I need to set the connectors up so they accept or expect authentication. Why is that a lot of problems here? Well, I will open up a console. Just a second. In just a second, I will try here. Actually, I want to try there. I will try on another server. Let's see here. This one will load faster. And actually, I have this here, print screen. Problem is that these 2 terms are very much together. One is internet and is anonymous, and the other one is internal, and they're together. And the internal one requires authentication. Internet one doesn't require authentication. And sysadmins often mistakenly choose the wrong one. Let's say they need to do the connectors between 2 internal servers, they will choose the internet. Or they need to actually do the internet connector, and they will choose the internal one. Doesn't work, because the wizard sets the connector to either authentication or no authentication. And you have to do the same on the send connector. The send connector must be set send authentication if you have the receiving connector set to require authentication. Once you see this problem in your in your log files, the easiest thing you can do, just remove the connectors that you created and recreate them with the correct settings. Okay. Let's see if I told everything that I had to. Okay. This one is interesting because what you can see here is what you are filtering. Get pipeline, transport pipeline. Okay. What this is telling me is, let's say, at a different stage, when I did a telnet and I said hello, what can I filter on hello? Actually, I don't filter anything at that part. But let's say I do the on mail command. So I said, okay, mail from. Let's do some checking. Let's see if there is if I have sender filter or recipient filter or some other filters that I can use to check my email. And the results of these agents you can actually see in the agent log file that I mentioned earlier, that we looked at earlier. I can also see that I'm using Exchange Forefront and other agents. And where can you see this in that PDF file? Well, on Connect, on Hello, on Hello, and so on. Well, on Connect, on Hello, on Hello, and so on. And these are different filters. Actually, they will start to work on Connect, and it will check the IP address. And it will check the IP address if the IP address is allowed or blocked. If it's allowed, it will skip all the anti-spam filtering. It will just skip it because we put the IP address on whitelist. If it's rejected, it will just check a couple of information. Let's say who this email is sent to internally, because the recipient could be whitelisted, and if it's not whitelisted, it will reject it here at the beginning. Actually, and you can see this, let's say, pipeline tracing with, let's say, some third-party add-ons. Why this is interesting? Because sometimes I have to troubleshoot some exchange that's behaving oddly. It doesn't work as expected. Let's say it doesn't produce the logs that we expect. I always look at any third-party installations on it, any third-party agents. And if it's some weirdness going on with Exchange, we just disable them for the time being or uninstall them, test again, and or maybe update the agents first and test and test and test. That's why this command is useful. Transport pipeline. This is another way to look at your agents. There are multiple agents. Get transport agent. There are a couple of them. If you will look at Exchange 2007, you will see additional ones, but those are hidden now. Built-in agents are hidden, and you cannot disable them. There were too many problems with that. And you can still see, let's say, connection filtering agent, protocol agent analysis, attachment filter agent. Their priorities, you can change the priorities with, let's say, set transport agent. You can see that we are using additional ones. This is Forefront security for Exchange. And when I was showing earlier, let's say when we were doing the sender ID testing, where I was telnetting, it was telling me you're sending from the wrong IP address. Let's say that was sender ID agent working, and so on. And there are, like I said, multiple connection filtering agents will check the IP address if it's on the block list or allow list, and so on and so on. And this one is actually disabled. You can actually, this agent you can disable or enable or change the priority. So how do we troubleshoot any problems from the sending side? Let's say we are trying to receive the email and we get reports that we can see the email in the agent log files. It's being rejected, and we want to know why. And we have no idea. Agent log just says no PRA, so on some strange error. We want to know why. Well, one option is to use Wireshark, and we actually did that before in the past, and it works, but there are better methods. The problem with Wireshark is I mentioned earlier that Exchange will always try to use SSL. If we have SSL enabled SMTP server on the other side, they will just do their handshake, they will do the SSL connection, and they will exchange the email. And I cannot see the email in that state. I can't see email because it's encrypted. So we have to first disable email and then wait for the problematic email to come again. And we have to capture it. And actually we did. Like I said, this is one of such, this is actually from Wireshark. And the problem in this case was the sending company, actually this was aqua.com, was sending email, and they declared mail from and some email address. That's P1 header. And they actually submitted P2 header. P2 header. And this is the problem. Because it's not the correct address. It's missing at domain.com. It was correctly declared the first part, but it was incorrectly declared on the second part. And Exchange rejected it. And it kept rejecting it. And this is the one way how you can troubleshoot. There's a better way. You don't have to disable SSL. You don't have to use the Wireshark. But this works. It's easy. So what is the other method? The other method is called pipeline tracing. It's extremely useful, and we use it quite often when we have to troubleshoot emails, a problem with email delivery. And actually helps us troubleshoot some of the hardest problems that we can find on the SMTP side. Why this is useful is because it allows me to actually see the email in its original state. But it must be enabled. It's not enabled by default. So if I get a call, we have a problem with emails being rejected and we want to know why. I have to first know what is the email address of the sending user, who is sending, their email address. I have to know that. And actually I can find that out quite easily. I can look at the agent log. It's very useful if you know IP address of the email server that is sending this, right? So how can you enable this? Well, some PowerShell commandlets, there is no GUI for this. And I can actually show this to you in the real environment. I will just go into this production environment. So set, actually I have to do get transport server. It will find only one. Better. And set transport server. I need to enable pipeline tracing. Pipeline tracing enabled. I have to set this to true. I have to set another thing. I have to enable. I have to set email address of the sending user. Sending email address. I will just enter my email address and I will send email. Okay, this is set. This mail server now is just waiting for me to send an email. Before I do that, I want to show you where these logs will be stored. Logs will be stored here. Actually, there will be another one log under the logs, pipeline tracing, but it doesn't exist right now. It will exist as soon as I hit it with the first email. It will just create it. Okay, I will just send an email. to this address. This one. Send, and I hope it hits the right server. Right. It's always a problem with live demos. I don't think it was sent yet. Let's see. Oh, yeah, it was just sent. Yeah, it is pipeline tracing. Let's see what's inside. Message snapshot and messages. But before I show you what's inside, I will also show you another problem that we actually were able to solve with this. It's similar to the one before. Another company, they said we again have, this is another company, we have a problem with, again, mail delivery. They are the sending site is claiming they are sending, and actually we were able to see the message in the agent log file, but it was never delivered to the user, and it was rejected actually, and we couldn't figure out why. So we enabled pipeline tracing, and again we can see somewhere should be P1 header, but the problem is actually with this form sender. It is here. This is the email address that we set the filter to. We were actually able to see this in the agent log file that I showed the first. But the problem was with the from address. Again, it's missing the first part. Again, it's missing @ and let's say info or some other address before it. Exchange is very strict about it. And this is quite tricky to troubleshoot if you don't know that, let's say, pipeline tracing exists or some other tools. Once we knew that, they were able to fix this problem in a matter of minutes. And actually, I have the original one still here. As mentioned, Exchange will record any email before it rejects it. And again, I just showed you how you can view this. Let me just jump to this server. Okay. Let's see, I should be able to show you logs, pipeline tracing. Continue. Message snapshot. That I have to sort this out based on date and look at the first one. No, this one is not the right one. I guess I won't find it now. Actually, it doesn't really matter, but this one, this is the one that I took the print screen from. Once this was fixed, here, the email went through without any problems. Don't forget, once this is done, don't forget to disable this, because in this case, if you will forget to disable this feature or this filtering, email will just keep piling up and collecting and sitting on your drives. And this is actually the whole email with the content, with the subject, all email incomplete. And it will just sit on your drives and it will fill up the drives. So once you're done troubleshooting, once you fix the problem, disable the pipeline tracing. Again, it's quite easy. I can show this to you here. If I use this command to enable this, I will just use this one to disable it. And actually it warns me. I should be removing any content that was stored during the pipeline trace. But I still have my trace here that I did earlier. And this one is actually from my test that I did here, where I said, okay, presentation and so on. I will show what's inside. But the thing is, what I want to show you here is, let's say I want to find out specific header that was set or not set in my email. When I sent the email, I required, let's say, a header. I put in the email the header that I want to receive back the read receipt when this email was read. And it's kind of hard to figure out what header that is without pipeline tracing enabled. And let's look at the email that I sent. This is the complete email. I sent a couple of minutes ago, just after I enabled the pipeline tracing. And the message, let's see if I can find the header that I'm looking, that I was interested in. Actually, I can't. Interesting. Should be. We'll just check another one, but the last one. Oh, interesting. I should be able to see all the headers, but I'm missing one, but I could be just overlooking it. But what you can actually still see in here are all the headers that are added or removed when it arrives into your environment. And why this is interesting is maybe you will also notice that as emails are received into your environment, Exchange will remove a lot of headers. It's called header firewall. Why it will remove the some of the headers? Let's say if I'm a spammer, I might put into the email, let's say, a header that will set this mail was already cleaned and it has SCL value or spam confidence level of, let's say, -1. If any email comes with such headers, they will just get removed on the first step as it enters your organization. So it doesn't fool any anti-spam or anti-malware services running on Exchange or any other appliance that email might enter. But then again, Exchange adds its own headers, and you can see those headers here. And you can see, actually, I have a lot of snapshots of my email. This is original, and there are how many copies? About 18 copies? 23 copies of the same email, because I have copy of email after each agent. Remember, I showed you, let's say, get transport agents, and there are numerous agents, and I get a copy of my email after every agent, how it looks, because agent might be adding header, might be adding content, might be changing something, and I can view now the message before it was edited and after it was edited, and figure out which agent potentially is causing the problems. Another built-in tools that you can use to troubleshoot your Exchange environment are performance counters. Very useful. There are numerous ones for different agents, for different purposes. These are just a couple of them. Let's say recipient rejected by recipient validation. Almost 10,000 users were rejected because the email address that they were trying to deliver does not exist. Messages with no PRA, or in other words, with wrong email address, almost 500, or 434. Validated with SPF, let's say, and almost 1,000, and so on, so on. And you can actually view how many email messages and how many recipients this your organization or this server send the messages to. Almost 300,000. Connections total. How many servers connected to my servers? Almost 500,000, and so on, so on. So this is really busy server. And you can actually go and play with these performance counters because they're very, very useful. especially when you are trying to, let's say, troubleshoot any problems. What you might want to pay attention to is, let's say, this counter, connections current. Okay, here is one. This means that one mail server is connected to this server right now. You can see any number here. I see hundreds concurrent connections at any time to the server. Depending how busy your server is, how well it's set up, and so on and so on. Other useful things to look when configuring your environment with SMTP or your transport service. Receive connectors. Let's take a look at receive connectors. So the purpose of receive connector is to receive email. Get receive connector. I have two. I will just look at one of them with a couple of information. So one information that you want to pay attention to, and this one is actually has the default value of 5. It's star pit interval. This means once I enter email address that I'm sending to, it will wait 5 seconds before it says, okay, this email exists, or no, it doesn't exist. Why is that? So that attackers can't grab my email addresses. They cannot guess them because it's too much of delay. You can put a higher value in here if you want to. I've seen as high as 15 seconds. But this means that if somebody is sending email to 5 people in your organization, it will wait 15 seconds after each one they enter. So 15, 5 times 5, and so on. So it will take more time. Another value here is, let's say, and this is again the fault value, maximum protocol errors. This is again set to 5. This means, remember I was playing with telnet command earlier, and I was passing commands. If I make mistake 5 or more times, it will disconnect me. It will say too many errors. You might want to set this to lower number if you wish. Why would you might want to set this to lower number? Most servers, when communicating between themselves, shouldn't make errors, right? So most errors will be made by some human typing or some bad script sending emails and so on. Just something to think about. Let's see. I actually showed this transport config. This is another one. Get transport config. This is mostly for internal communication between internal servers. It doesn't have too much to do with external. And let's say the last things, get transport server. This is specific configuration for your transport server. You can see, let's say, what its IP addresses are, what DNS servers it should use if they're set to any specific DNS servers, path to any logging, and so on, so on. And if you need, you can change this or change some values. So in summary, before I finish, when troubleshooting mail delivery, know what logs to look at. And again, I will stress, first log that you should look at are agent logs that I showed first. It will show if email was delivered to your organization, or if it touched your system. Was it rejected? Was it accepted? It will be recorded in there. There will be IP address of the sending server. There will be mail from, who was sending, who was recipient, and why it was rejected, if it was rejected. If email is not recorded in there, I have very, very big suspicion that that email was never sent, or there is some problem somewhere before my email server, whatever that problem might be, either with DNS, either with firewall. If I can't see my email in the agent log, I will go and look for something else. Don't forget to check these logs on all your servers, because usually you have multiple servers sitting on the internet and waiting to accept the emails. And you have to check all of them. You don't know which one of 5 servers that email touched and was rejected. Pipeline tracing is extremely useful to troubleshoot if you need to see the whole content of email that got rejected. I showed 2 examples where emails were incorrectly formatted and Exchange was rejecting them. It's extremely useful and a lot of people don't know about it. You do now. So use it. It's extremely useful and extremely easy to use. It takes less than a day to find out what the problem is, because you have to wait again for that email to come. Don't forget to disable pipeline tracing once you're done, and delete the email because they might contain sensitive information. So if you have any questions, there's also my email, and I'm also having another session tomorrow morning on Kerberos if you're interested in that. But I will take any questions now, so please. So if you're using IMAP client, you mean? I never look at them, but I'm pretty sure that they are in there. But you might have to enable them, so to see the communication. A lot of logs are, even if they are enabled, they're sort of medium, and you might have to set the higher level of logging to get some information. But I'm not sure if it needs to be enabled from API, because most of my clients don't use it. Mm-hmm. I understand. I understand. Yeah, I understand. Well, most of my customers moved away from POP3 and IMAP. They moved to web services, and they still access those mailboxes. So if you need an answer to that, I'm sure we can produce some log files for IMAP. I'm not sure where to enable them by default. If you want that answer, just drop me an email and I will send them an answer to you. I'm sure there are some log files. I'm sorry for, yeah. Any other questions? No other questions. Well, I thank you for your attention. I hope to see you tomorrow morning on Kerberos. I hope you learned something useful. Thank you.